At first glance, these two handheld devices look almost indistinguishable aside from the physical color of their shells. Would you be surprised to hear that they actually aren't the same? Released simultaneously, manufactured by the same company, and even powered by the same CPU inside, yet one cost up to $40 more than the other. And no, one is not some sort of limited collector's version. These are the Anbernic RG353V and 353VS. So what sets them apart? And which one is better? I'm Steve from Restalgia, and let's talk about it. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, be sure to go down below the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. And I would like to thank LITNXT.com for sending me the pair of these devices to have a look at. Today we are delving into not one, but two Anbernic handhelds. And if they strike a chord of familiarity, it's because Anbernic graced us with the RG351V a few years ago. It was a personal favorite device that I've had the opportunity to review on my channel. It had that iconic Game Boy-esque form factor, vibrant display, impeccable controls, and most importantly, some really great gaming performance. Now these two devices are its updated and refined versions, but it still leaves us with some questions. Why two of them, and how do they differ? Well, first, let's unbox and explore a bit. The boxes for both devices are very similar aside from the model number, location, and the color. The packaging Anbernic uses is fairly standard across many of their devices, simple and easy to understand. Regardless of which device you've purchased, you will get the handheld itself inside along with a single USB Type-C cable, a tempered glass screen protector along with glass wipes for the application process, and a quick start guide and manual. Holding the consoles themselves feel quite premium. The weight is just right, the controls are spot on, and they've refined the design notably with a second analog stick up front and a repositioned speaker. Looking around the device, we have the volume rocker on the left side, and on the right side of the device we have two TF slots, one for the OS and the other for storage, a reset button, and our power button as well. On the bottom, we simply have one USB-C type charging port, and on the top we have a USB-C OTG port used for plugging in additional accessories, and a mini HDMI port, as well as a 3.5mm headphone jack. Both devices look identical in every way except for the sticker on the back that simply displays a different model number. But the real difference is they're going to be under the hood. Now both devices flaunt a 3.5-inch IPS screen with a resolution of 640 by 480. However, on the 353V, the screen is also a touch screen. They both have the same SoC running the RK3566 quad-core Cortex-A55 CPU, and that's clocked in at 1.8 GHz. Coupled with a Mali G52 MP2 GPU. The 353VS comes with 1 GB of LPDDR4 RAM, and the 353V comes with 2 GB of LPDDR4 RAM. Both devices come with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi support, as well as a 3500 mAh battery for about 6 hours of continuous gameplay. But the largest differentiating factor between the two models is that the 353VS runs on a single Linux-based operating system, where the 353V actually offers a dual boot system allowing for Linux or Android 11. This dual boot system can take advantage of the touchscreen feature along with other benefits such as improved emulation on certain consoles, which we will get into in a little bit. In hand, these devices feel compact but super comfortable. They are large enough to fit nicely in your hands, allowing for a comfortable placement of all of your fingers. The device is made from a premium plastic material that, although is smooth, it's not slippery, and it actually gives you great grip. Anbernic also placed 3 notches below the rear shoulder buttons for additional grip. The D-pad is excellent and responsive, and the action buttons feel great as well. The rear shoulder buttons are well placed, and they've made the L1 and R1 buttons about 50% wider than the L2 and R2 buttons, just to make it easier to feel the difference between them with your fingertips. fingertips. The additional analog stick added to the front is great because it improved and increases game compatibility for consoles like N64 and PS1. An example of this would be that it is now possible to play games like Ape Escape for the PlayStation 1. Finally, because the speaker is moved to the center of the two analog sticks, you no longer have to worry about your palm covering the speaker when the device was just resting in your natural grip. This is actually a great quality of life change. Now moving into gameplay and emulation, although the 353V does have an additional gig of RAM, performance across both devices is essentially identical with a few notable exceptions. Now let's start with all of our favorite 8 and 16-bit retro consoles like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and even a bunch of arcade titles. All of these games are going to run great on both devices, and because they both natively will boot into that custom Linux OS, there's not going to be any performance differences between either handheld. Load time, frame rates, button inputs, they all feel identical across the board. Even Nintendo 64, PS1, PSP, and some Dreamcast titles run fairly well on this build, but these consoles is where we start seeing the real benefits of the RG353V device over its counterpart. Because the 353V has the ability to boot into the Android 11 operating system, you get the benefit of having access to a bunch of standalone emulators to run those more advanced consoles. To access Android on the 353V, all you need to do is make sure your device is fully powered off, then you remove the SD card from the TF1 slot, and that's pretty much it. Generally speaking, performance is much better for the more advanced consoles like N64, PSP, Dreamcast, and even Nintendo DS through the Android side of things. You even have access to Dolphin and Aether SX2 emulators to run GameCube or PS2 games, although I should mention, don't get too excited because I couldn't get a single game to work that I tested that was even remotely playable. So if you are hoping to play games like God of War or Super Smash Bros. Melee on this device, you should probably consider looking elsewhere. The Linux OS is a very clean custom emulation station style front end. Navigation is super clean and visually pleasing. Access to the menus and settings are very easy to find, and overall things are super straightforward, and there are actually a number of ways that you can adjust the UI to your liking, including creating game collections or actually changing the theme altogether. The Android side of things is actually exactly what you would expect. A very plain and boring Android menu. The device does come preloaded with a cool front end that you can actually activate by swiping down on the menu and then selecting this R-looking icon. Once you do that, the front end boots up, and it does give you a fairly simple and easy to use UI to select whatever console or game you would like, but I will admit, the UI on Android is fairly lackluster and not nearly as nice as the stock display through the Linux build. But being on Android, you can actually download and install some of your other favorite Android emulation front ends if you'd like. Just as an aside, you will have to do much more tweaking and tinkering on the Android side of things, whereas on the Linux OS side, it's much more pick up and play. Now I do know that there are several custom operating systems available for this device. However, in this video, I wanted to focus on the out-of-the-box experience. Let me know if you'd like me to do a deep dive into custom OS comparisons. Regardless of which device you go with, there are a few different storage options. Essentially, the more storage you buy, the more games come preloaded on that second SD card. And in my case, I have the 128GB storage option and have thousands and thousands of games to choose from. Transferring your own games is also a breeze. You simply drag and drop them on the SD card. Now, pricing is sitting at around $120 for the 353VS and between $140 to $165 for the lower storage amount of the 353V, and that's depending on, of course, on where you buy it from. And just like with the 351V, I really do like these handhelds. I love the classic vertical Game Boy form factor, and the screens are bright, and they're vibrant, and they make classic games look incredible. But does it even make sense to buy one of these things if you have the older version? And if you don't, which one of these two versions should you even consider? Well, I would actually say even though these newer versions are more powerful and have some upgrades and improvements, if you're just going to be playing 8 or 16-bit games, then there really is no need to purchase either of these two units. If you don't have one though, and you were considering between the two options available, I would probably lean towards the 353V simply because you have the ability to enjoy better emulation through Android on select console. There are many different handhelds available in the market that are a lower price point and can handle most of your favorite classic console games, like the Miyoo Mini Plus for example, which makes the 353VS a harder device to recommend. Ultimately, you can decide for yourself if one of these devices is actually right for you. That is pretty much all I've got for you guys in this video. As always, I will leave some links in the video description down below so you can learn a little bit more about these products, or you can pick one up for yourself. Let me know in the comment section if you have the original RG351V and if you think it's worthwhile to upgrade to one of these devices. Remember to subscribe to the channel for more videos. Thank you so very much for watching, and I'll speak to you guys again real soon.